Thank you for tuning back in to Birth Your Medicine with Lesley on YouTube. My favorite project, maybe experiment so far, because I get to just sit and talk with people. So I hope people are enjoying these. And I was just mentioning to Jamie before I got on, like, I just really want to have different people on to talk to inspire others, like that their story matters and that anyone that I have on here, they're probably going to say something that's going to just spark something for you. So I was excited when Jamie said yes to coming on and meeting with me. And just before I hit record, we were saying 25 years.
How is that?
I know. And like Jamie said, and we're only 27. So how is that even possible? But I honestly, like last night I was thinking about it. I just could not wrap my head around it. I was like, how has it been 25 years that we worked in the same place? So I was trying to think about this, Jamie, and you can remind me. We worked at social services together in Regina.
hmm
I was in child protection. If I remember correctly, were you in more of like young offenders or were you in protection as well?
Well, I started out in young offenders and then I
Mm.
moved to resources.
Right,
hmm
right. Okay.
Yeah, because I got a
Yeah.
permanent spot in resources and that's where I stayed and then eventually left from that position.
Mm, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like we were just babies then. Like I was in my early 20s when I started working at social services. And I remember being so excited to just have my own job and like, come at that time to come right out of university right into a job. Like it was much easier than I think it is now
Oh,
for
for sure.
people to do, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think just the excitement that comes along with, like, you feel a sense of maybe financial freedom, perhaps, because you're bringing in a steady paycheck, you're making more money than working a part-time gig, busing or waitressing or doing whatever it was that you're doing, right? And so it
Yeah.
was a bit exciting in that sense. Like you feel like you're a grown up.
Yeah, and you might even feel like, wow, like I remember like getting a first real paycheck. I always had a lifeguarding job and that was helped me get through school, but to have that first real like grown-up job and paycheck, even though I was nowhere near being grown up
I hear you.
in,
Yep.
in my maturity and um so yeah, those were and when I was thinking about like what we're going to talk about today, I knew that we'd probably come to that because both of us at a certain point while we were there at social services, made the decision to leave and do something else.
hmm
And I think both of us pretty much left social work altogether when we made that decision, if I'm right. Like I in 2005 moved to Korea to teach English. And I don't know about you, but my there was just this tipping point for me where I just knew I just couldn't do it anymore. Like the things that I was seeing and the things that I was doing, and I was getting migraines nonstop. I would just remember calling in sick so many times because I had migraines, and
Wow.
I've yet to have a migraine since. And I think it was just the level of stress. And I don't know about you, but now that I feel like I'm a little bit more mature and I've seen the world a little bit more, I look back and I just think of the things that we were sometimes put into without any sort of really support. Um,
hmm
and just for me, I felt like a kid still going into remove kids from homes and different things like that. And I honestly just think my stress level, but it was like shut it out, go to work, shut it out, go to work, and the body just couldn't handle it anymore. What was
Yeah.
your, what was you like? I think you left after me, but
Well, I left when I went on mat leave.
okay.
Yeah. And so I always knew though when I had children that I wanted to stay home with them. And so that's what created that shift for me was just having children and wanting to be at home and and nurture them and for them to
Mm,
have their mom around and for us to be able to do things together and for me to be that support for them while they are growing and learning. And it didn't feel like, daycare was where I wanted my kids to be. And we had the means in order for me to stay home. So I was
Mm.
very lucky, excuse me, in that way. And so that is really what was the shift for me. And
Wow.
I mean that I have come back in some ways, right? But to like this, the social work area, or like also blended it, but obviously I think we might touch upon that a bit later.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I just love it. We were talking about this before we started recording that I was saying to you that a lot of times with my birth your medicine mentors, and other people as well, we talk about this sort of calling where there's just this innate like tap on the shoulder, like it's time, there's something else out there.
Hmm.
And I do feel, I hear this from other people too, that motherhood often is one of those tipping points for people, because we shift from that maiden energy into that mother energy, and
Absolutely.
automatically we want to start to support and nurture our kids.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. Like I knew that was what I wanted to, and how I wanted to show up was just to be a presence in my children's lives all the time. And
Mm.
but what's interesting about that is when I was on like just was staying home with them, because I mean I wasn't didn't have mat leave anymore. I just walked away from that. But is that my creative side started sparking up again, because I've always been a creative kind of person. And through that, I started then, like how moms, you take photos of your kids always, right? Like, oh, they're so cute. And like, but in that, there is something that that was the spark actually for me.
Oh,
Yeah. And so it was taking photographs of my kids. And
wow.
yeah. And then one year, my husband, he got me a photography, is it like a gift to take like a class at like Neil
Mhm.
Balkwell. And so I went there and started, taking this class, and then it just to get a bit more skills and stuff. And then it just kept on going from there. I just started taking more and more classes. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to keep on clearing my throat today, I think. But is that I I don't know, there was just something within me that I needed to learn more, and like just
Mm.
it really just sparked that. I don't know what it is, because photography isn't just about like taking photographs for me. It never has been. It's about, I don't know, like documenting stories of our lives and seeing the importance of documenting
Mhm.
that and creating that legacy, because I wanted to hold those memories. I wanted my children to be able to look through them and be like, oh, wow, like I don't remember this, or I do remember that, whatever that is. Like I wanted to create something for them. And it kind of just it grew from there, because, as you know, I had a sick mom who
Mhm.
had primary progressive MS. And when I had my kids, I mean, her disease progressed very, very quickly to where, just for people who don't know,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
where she had no control over her bodily functions. We had to put her into Wascana rehab so she could have 24-hour care. And because, she wasn't able to feed herself, she wasn't able to go to the, washers, like even her speech and stuff became eventually impaired, and that kind of thing. And so with them, I remember, taking the kids in their car seats and, in the buckets when they're babies, and visiting her. And, just because they didn't have my kids didn't have a regular experience that a lot of
Mhm.
people do with grandparents and stuff. And so
Right.
then I kind of wanted to document that. And by that time I had been doing like, families and weddings and things like that by that time. And like just the evolution of even that, kind of changed because I started seeing then my mom and how it wasn't this regular experience that my kids have had with grandparents. And
Mhm.
so,
And even yourself as a young mom,
yeah,
with that support was different, not having that
yeah,
from your mom, right?
no. And like
Yeah.
where I was more of her caregiver rather than,
Hmm.
so I didn't have that direction maybe and support, like you said. And so just seeing the different dynamics um, play out and then seeing how invisible my mom became, I really wanted
Hmm.
to start documenting that. And so there was a shift for me, even like I had taken this. I feel like I'm talking lots.
No, that's great. I love
Okay.
it.
um, I I took this. I mean, by that time, I had taken lots of photography courses and conferences and done all these different things. And I went to this one called Real Life, and it was in Canmore. And there, it really gave me permission about the women photographers that were there, and what they shared was about these real, raw experiences that they had in life. And that really actually gave me the permission then to be like, well, yeah, it isn't pretty what's happening with our family. Like, it's not this, everyone's happy and smiling. And like, it looks very, very different than what other people are going through. But that doesn't mean that it's not as important. And so it really gave me
Mhm.
permission then to document it. And then that's where I started photographing my mom and doing more documentary photography. So I shifted out of the weddings and the more of the family stuff and shifted into this real raw,
Mhm.
authentic experiences that are creating legacy for people. Um, and so
Wow.
then that just, developed from there. Like it's just like this crazy evolution and has continued to evolve. And I, I mean, I can go on, but maybe I'll pause here for a minute. But
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I admired about you is that you took every time, and we had this discussion before I hit record, but it was this for me and you, we'd had this, it's like this love-hate relationship with social media. But
mm-hmm,
I realized without social media, I wouldn't have been seeing like what you were doing. And honestly, every time I saw it, I was just so inspired. And for me, authenticity and real life, and even when I've traveled, I don't love the like resort. I like to go off. I like to see the people. I like to get to know. And that's what you were documenting. I remember that one project you were doing. You were like getting on a bus, you're just meeting someone and,
yeah,
hearing their story and you're taking their picture. And I could feel like I felt it in my body, like what you were doing. I felt like she has to be so passionate about this because I feel it. And then when I
it's
started
awesome.
doing my death doula training, um, I saw that you were documenting some of these end of life times with these kids that, and their parent that was going to be passing away and they're in their home. And I
Mm-hmm,
I love it because it's taking the things that we've always been taught that are scary and just like someone who's ill or you think like in a long-term care facility. It pains me when I go to see my grandpa at this long-term care facility because I see them, they're all just sitting there in these chairs. They're either sleeping and they have
mm-hmm.
stories. They have like children, they have wives and for you to document those things, I don't know, it's that visibility, I think, for sometimes when people um feel forgotten or set aside.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like um that's what I was seeing. Like this, everybody has a story. Everybody
Mhm.
has an experience um and like they had meaning behind it. It's I don't know. Like even when I would, like you said, I went around and I'd go on a bus and then I'd meet people, I'd do some street work and like just there was something about people that would pull me in energetically. And I'm like, I know I need to talk with this person. I know I need to photograph them and share their story and like give them a voice. And
Mhm.
and so I started doing those things and it's just like people want to share. People want
Yeah.
to be seen and validated in their experiences in their lives. Like I think a lot of times it's just they walk around and they do feel like that sense of invisibility, or that they're, I don't know, that they're not worthy, or that maybe they're not, I don't know, just maybe that they feel alone or
Hmm.
isolated, and that just gives them a voice.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And even in doing like death work and things like that, and working at the cancer center here in Edmonton, um, helped me to really see when people were coming to that space of the end of their life, and they're sort of going through their own history, their own legacy. And I realized every single person, people that are getting to that point of their end of their life, they want to know that they mattered in some way. And
Mm-hmm.
that's legacy. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not, it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be, you know, dramatic, but to know that they meant something to someone at a certain point, they all want that. We all want that as humans. That's what we want. We want to know that we're leaving a memory behind.
And what's the first thing that people do when someone passes away? They look at photographs. They
Right?
look at the things that they've documented, whether that's maybe in journals, or just visual pieces, right? Like that's the first thing that they do. Or they'll have the slideshows that play in funerals. There's a reason
Mhm.
behind that.
Yeah.
It's to show the story of their lives, and that they did matter, and that there was people that loved them. And so
Yeah.
why do we wait? Why do we wait until death in order to do that? Why can't
Hmm.
we do it before? It's interesting. I did a little bit of a creative retreat for myself recently, and I was in this. Um, I'm going to slaughter its name, so I'm not even going to try saying where it is. But I wanted something remote. I wanted something close enough where I could drive, whatever. And I went there. And when I was there, I met a man who created this place. It was like almost like a retreat center, but it's like it had old buildings, and there's a lot of history, and like he brought his school that he went to from like the farm, and around that area, and like just has created this kind of community space for people to rent out and have events
Hmm.
or just stay at and whatever. And when I met him, and it was like this, I won't go into the details because it's this weird series of events, but the synchronicities that occurred, I'm
Oh,
like, it blew my mind actually.
I love when that happens.
Yeah.
It's just like dominoes, right? It's like,
Yes. Yes.
and
And it
it's,
just, yeah. And so when I met him, I'm like, I know I need to photograph. And I wasn't going there. I was working on like a personal project. I wasn't going there to photograph anybody else. But when I met him, I'm like, something in me is like, I need to photograph this man. I need to find out. And so, like I said, that synchronicity occurred through these weird series of events, and it was
gives
meant
me
to be.
goosebumps, and I don't even know the story yet.
And he agreed. We met in this church by chance, of course. And I was just looking at it. I stopped in, and then we started talking and whatever. And then I'm like, there's something about you, because I'd met him previously. And I'm like, and that's when it triggered that thought inside of me. And then we went off on our own little ways. And then I didn't even recognize him the second time I saw him. And then he started speaking. And I'm like, hey, we met the other day, and you're the guy. Because then I started thinking, as I was talking to this guy, I'm like, I want to photograph this guy. And I had my camera, and then I asked him, and it was weird. And he's like, yeah, I was the person. Yeah, because he was wearing this big buffalo hide thing, and it was like a little bit colder out, so he was more covered up and stuff than like the first time I had met him. And so then he agreed, and then ended up following him around, and he was telling me the history of the place and like why he chose to bring those buildings and the significant meaning behind them. And then he invited me to go because he'd take down old barns and like repurpose them, and he's like 80 years old, and he's still getting up on roofs and like yeah, doing all
Wow.
this work. And so I ended up just being with this man, and I didn't have never met him before, but in those moments together throughout that whole day, we I knew him on this deep, intimate level. And I don't know, it was wild that it happened that way. And I was out in this grids and we were driving around and he was showing me these, where his family's homesteads were and like just the
Wow.
history behind it. And then we just sat afterwards and had a beer together and we're talking about life and death and meaning and spirituality and religion and all of these things. And like we went there, we went deep and just through this
Wow.
chance meeting, like with one another.
Chance,
Yeah, right.
quote unquote chance.
Yeah. And I knew that's why I was supposed to be in this place. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Wow.
I love
And
it.
just even hearing that, like the fact that like he could share all of that with, which was obviously super important to him. And then
Hmm.
to have someone that was willing to listen and be interested and go deep. I can't even imagine how he must have felt after leaving you, like knowing how you felt meeting him.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was interesting because
Yeah.
like when we said goodbye and we parted ways, we kind of knew that we probably won't see one another again. And it was like,
Yeah.
it was just I can't remember the words that we exchanged and like we had a hug or whatever. And it was like we were there for that moment and then we're, we're probably not gonna run into each other again. And it's wild that we went and I feel like I know this man on such an intimate, personal level. And
Hmm.
him probably the same with me, I'm imagining, right? And
Yeah.
but we'll probably never see one another again. And it's just
Wow.
allowing, I think, that vulnerability to happen between us. And um, yeah, I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing when that happens.
Yeah. And I just think like with documentation or documentary photography, it's in these moments, I think there's been such an evolution because I think about when I was born. My mom and dad talk about how my dad wasn't even allowed in the hospital.
Mm,
Um, and now, you have people who are bringing in, they're having home births. Their kids are also, their older kids are there, they're watching, they're part of it. They bring photographers in to document all of this. And I know my kids, like, I just have my pictures on my iPhone. They love sitting down and just scrolling through my photos and looking at themselves as babies. And
hmm.
they always ask me, Mom, tell me my birth story.
Wow.
And I just think that as things have evolved and people are inviting in people like you to these spaces of birth and death and just these random encounters, there's so much magic there.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And I think, especially, I think the magic occurs because we allow ourselves to be vulnerable in these spaces. And whether it is like something like birth or death, but even the in between things, just the by chances
Hmm.
that you meet, like it just, when we let our guards down and then we allow space just to be human and,
Hmm.
and I don't know, something really magical does occur. And I just think it comes down to allowing ourselves to let those, barriers that maybe we had at some point or with some people, just to be
Hmm.
let down because it's not like a space of judgment. It's just seeing people where they are and where they're at in that moment and honoring it,
Yeah.
honoring each other in that space.
I can sit for hours sometimes. There's a couple of project things that I follow on TikTok too, where people will, be downtown Vancouver or downtown Edmonton, and they're talking to, some of the homeless and addiction, and they ask them about their story, and I could sit for hours and just listen to their story, um,
Yeah.
and whether they're in a space of fact in some of their story, it doesn't even matter. It just gives them this 30 seconds or 1 minute to like just remind me that these people are someone's like son or daughter or grandson or
Yes.
granddaughter, and that they aren't just a person on the street.
That's right. I think it's really empowering for them. It kind of just reminds me of a project I did. I received a grant through Sask Arts, and it was to work with Shale Home, which is through like Souls Harbor in Regina.
Okay.
And so it is a residential facility for women and their children who struggle with women who struggle with addictions, but they're allowed to bring their children there. And it's a
Mm.
year program, and then they can, I think, extend it for another year or something like that. But anyways, the program was, or the grant was to for photographic storytelling. So I was actually teaching them to take photographs to tell their own stories.
Wow. So it wasn't
Yeah.
you just going in and doing it, you were teaching them.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
so amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I was photographing them at times for things that we did because it just, I wanted to document that for them and I'd give them their photos and stuff. But it was to teach them, and they got to choose whatever story they wanted. And we met, I think it was 10 weeks. And then they had an exhibition in community. And so it was actually photographing like their story. So they had to create like a storyboard on what the story they wanted to share. And then they started taking photographs, and we went all over. We went to a bunch of different locations and spaces, and I was just kind of helping and mentoring and that kind of thing. And then they'd write about those photographs afterwards and what they meant, and they created like this series of work to tell their story. And so some of the stories were about their addiction. Some of them, the stories was about their goals after addiction and where they were looking towards. Someone was about loss that they experienced. Very, very powerful stories that they wanted to share and allowed themselves to be vulnerable with. And
Wow.
yeah, and it was so beautiful because when I was there and observing, right? I was observing them taking the photographs. I was observing them when they're writing or like when we were talking about the photographs. And it was empowering for them to
Wow.
have that space to share.
And then to like be able to present that like you would as a photographer having a show.
Yes.
I can imagine the pride they must have felt for themselves.
Oh yeah. Like they're standing by their artwork because they had it on a wall. And like we had a like, just it was at Shale Home was that the first because they had two exhibitions actually. One was there and just the community was welcomed in. And they were standing there with so much pride and to be able to because then people would ask a bit about their story or they'd share some pieces of it and like just standing there look again observing them and it's just like
Oh,
I could just feel that and it was like their stories mattered and they knew it
yeah.
and I'm like that
And
was such a
that could be that one little tipping point for one of those women to make a different choice
Mhm.
in changing the trajectory of their future. Like that one little opportunity. And this is the thing I realize about being so young at social services. And then the way we were educated, it's
Mhm.
this one term for me always just sticks in my mind. It's like it's not about me, it's about you. So whenever they would try to ask like, well, are you even a mother? Or at the time I wasn't, I had zero clue how hard it was being a mother. And there I was judging. I can full out take accountability. I was in judgment
Mhm.
most of the time and I had zero experience. But I think that there was this one particular woman that changed I think she was probably that person that I was that one change for her. And I started to like, she always shared with me that the system was never going to let her like get better. Like every time she had a kid taken away, every time she had a kid taken away, she grew up in foster care. Like it was just this whole cycle of and I would sit with her, I would let her tell her stories. And I could feel this connection was different. She trusted me. I believed her. And sometimes she's probably pulling the wool over my my eyes too, But I just I just was so I wanted her to succeed. And what I realized is no one else. around was on the same team. The system didn't want her to succeed. You try to put in housing, you try to put in all of these things. And I remember leaving to Korea after I quit my job there. She was doing so well when I was just talking to her like a person and understanding her.
Hmm.
And I left to Korea and later found out like everything had just crumbled. And I just, to me, that just always stuck with me because I what she shared with me just before I left was like, you were the first social worker that I ever felt believed in me.
Mm.
And I'm just like, oh my God, like
Wow.
I I don't I never, and this is probably why you and I have often, got into jobs, realize it's not in alignment with us anymore, and then move along, is because I never want to be in a position where I'm just like robotic and just doing the thing,
Hmm.
checking the boxes, but not creating connection. It's
Yeah,
the connection piece.
it absolutely is the connection piece. And if there isn't space for people to be heard, to allow their stories to be shared, and then to be supported, and like actually for them to feel that they can be vulnerable with somebody, because maybe in a lot of
Mhm.
cases they haven't had that opportunity. And so to have a safe space to be vulnerable with somebody and it to
Mhm.
be a sacred, like to be held in a sacred way is so impactful.
Yeah.
And so I think that's beautiful that that occurred with one of the people you worked with. You
Mhm.
allowed them to do that. And that's
Yeah.
it. I mean, I think that's with anybody. If we allow that space for them to be vulnerable and to actually really hear them, not to check off the boxes, but to sit in complete presence with them,
Yeah.
they feel it, they know
Mhm.
it, and that what they've gone through, what their stories matter. If they're
Yeah.
good, if they're bad, if they're ugly, the stories
Yeah.
matter. It doesn't matter what it
Yeah.
is that the story is.
And the other part too is when I've worked with people, and as the end of life stuff, that's one of the biggest things that I'm always telling family members is take the pictures, take the videos, get your mom or your dad to read your favorite childhood story because maybe you don't have kids yet and you want your kids to
Hmm.
be able to hear their voices. Um,
Yeah.
do all of those things while you can because not everyone gets that opportunity. There's sudden deaths and accidents and things like that, but when we do have an opportunity to be able to do that. And I mean, also you see this stuff over social media all the time where families go on vacation and the mom's always taking, and lots of times people are like,
Never in them.
Mom, get in the like when your kids grow up and they're like, Mom, where were you? Like, were
Exactly.
you on vacation with us? It's like, get in the photo.
Yeah. Yeah. It made me think about this one a photography session I was hired to do. And it was a multimedia piece, but it was for a woman who had metastatic melanoma. And what she wanted to do was to create a multimedia piece, but a love story that she's going to leave for her children about what she loved about them and the things that they did. And so I went and I started photographing her over time with her children and, just regular things, jumping on the trampoline or maybe just sitting there because she had oxygen in and playing video games, having supper, praying together, whatever that was, just the everyday life. And then we did, and I interviewed her. So I did that over some time. I photographed her over a period of time, and then I started interviewing her about her story and about each child and what she wanted to share with them. And oh, it was just so powerful. And that's what she wanted to leave them with. She wanted to leave them with these words of love and that they mattered to her and how much they mattered to her.
Mm.
And then these photographs to go along with it. So then I included like past photographs of when they were babies and the photographs that she had. So I included it into this project. And it was just like this life story of her and the love she had for them and knowing that she was going to die. And
Hmm.
that's something that they're going to have, and they can play over with her voice and look at the photos. And that particular project really moved me in that I don't know, just like the idea of the legacy piece, but just how meaningful that's going to be for her children and what she wanted to leave them with, knowing
Hmm.
that their time is going to be short together. So,
I think you shared some snippets of that on your social media. And I
mm-hmm.
remember watching that and just same thing. Like I felt in those moments, each time you've done this in different areas, but I felt like I'm in the kitchen with her. I felt like I'm on the, it's like she is getting to be able to share her story,
Well, that's the
even though you
best
don't know
compliment.
you. Yeah, you even though you don't know this person, like you just feel this, and maybe it's that connection as again as a mother, like you put yourself in that same position of like the emotions and the mental and like what she's going through to be
Mm-hmm.
able to create this for her kids is huge.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And it
Mhm.
feels like such an honor to be able to do those things for people. And um, I don't know. I think, one of the reasons why really enjoy doing this, um, obviously, is to be able to give voices to people that maybe they haven't had the opportunity or that they want, or to create those legacies. But I want people, what you're saying, I want people to feel something. I want them
Mhm.
to, feel the giggles and the excitement of the interactions, or maybe feel the pain and the hurt
Mhm.
as well. And I think what happens and why I want to do that is just that it creates empathy. Like then people have that sense of empathy and then that connection with other humans. I feel like we're so disconnected these days. And then when we
And
do that,
desensitized,
yes,
right? Like when we watch regular TV or media or things like that, we've become so desensitized. And what you're doing is the complete opposite. It's bringing us back to feeling and
yes,
connection.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I want people to watch it and feel like they see that person too. And there isn't
Hmm.
that sense of judgment. It's just like, wow, like I feel you and I love you, even though I don't know you. And then for them to maybe look differently at other people in that same way. Like I just hope it's like that ripple effect, of the water. And then you see those ripples and because you have that experience and yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
That's
And even if it just makes you think, like I think about an encounter oftentimes sometimes it's my own feeling in my body, but I'll be going, downtown Edmonton or I'll be going to Leduc or something, and then I see a homeless person there and I start to feel like a little bit nervous, like, okay, my heart's just racing. And I'm just like, and the other day there was a fellow outside of the store and he was just playing his guitar and he was just singing and he just had his thing there. And at first, I was like, okay, okay, like I'm anticipating he's probably going to ask me for money. And I have this weird dialogue with myself, and I'm just like, Lesley, like it's you're fine, like like the guy's just playing his guitar. Like I don't know why that happens for me, but and I was like, you need to make eye contact with him.
mm,
And so I went and I was just standing there and I was like, just making eye contact with him and just the smile on his face. It was just like, and I don't know, like maybe I was the first person that day to like actually not just throw some change in and walk away, out of
mm-hmm,
obligation. It was like I knew that I wanted. It's like I see you. That's exactly the
mm,
thoughts that I was having. And I didn't have any change, so I didn't give him any. But it was that to me that felt like that was more important than putting money in his guitar case, anyways. And
yeah.
when I came out, he was gone already. But I think it's the things like you do that can sometimes just remind us. And I remember taking a course downtown Edmonton, and it was kind of in an area where there's a lot of churches in that area. So there's a lot of people that are coming for food and clothes and different things. And one day I was really early for the session and I was sitting in my car and I was just observing. And what I recognized is so many of these people, they were walking and they were hunched over and they were looking down at the
Mm,
ground. And I was taking a somatic class at the time. And when they were looking, they're just looking out the corner of their eye. They were just not even sort of looking up. And I was just observing one after the other. And at first I thought, okay, maybe sometimes people get back injuries and they get addicted to drugs or something. But I'm like, no, this is something else. And the thing that I felt that was exuding, the energy that was exuding was shame.
mm,
And I just like that broke my heart because I just thought to myself, the fact that, it was like watching when an animal, when you've said, like, did you pee on the floor? And the dog's like looking down, that some of these people have been in
mm.
such shame posture for so long that their bodies are literally folding over and looking down at the ground because to make eye
Wow.
contact with someone um sometimes makes them, it's like, oh crap, I am seen, you know?
Hmm. For
And I don't
sure.
think any I don't think any human should have to feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Even I love that you brought that up because like when my mom was at Wascana Rehab and there'd just be people sitting in like in front of the TVs and because they couldn't go anywhere else, they'd get wheeled in their wheelchairs. They couldn't wheel themselves around to explore the places and or like even um out they'd have them in these different little areas. And I'd always try to make um uh oh, I can't think of the word, but like make an attempt to really look at them and see them
Hmm.
because they a lot of times like even when people are out on the streets or wherever that they are it's just this sense of isolation and that they're alone
Hmm.
and whether that's because they're homeless or maybe they're just are in that sense of shame and that story that they are holding within themselves that kind of keeps them in that space too. But it's just
Hmm.
like all sometimes all it takes is what you're saying is just to look them in the eyes, just smile. And then
Hmm.
they feel like they're actually being seen,
Yeah.
and it makes a difference. It really does.
Yeah.
So I think that's beautiful that you did that.
And I think even, for my grandpa, he has dementia and he's in a long-term care home. And, I live 10 hours away, but when I go to visit, I know he doesn't necessarily know me, remember me.
Hmm.
But again, same thing. It's heartbreaking for me, but I also just sit there and ask him questions. And sometimes I can understand him, sometimes I can't understand him. Sometimes he'll just start telling me a story, and I'll never forget one day he said to me, it's like he had this moment of clarity, and he said, "Oh, you came from Edmonton?" And I said, "Yeah, we came from Edmonton." And he said, "Oh, did you see my mom there? My mom left, to go to Edmonton today. Maybe you saw her." I said, "Oh, no, we didn't run into her." It's like his mom had passed, decades. But it was just this moment where I was so intrigued by like what was going on in his mind, how
Hmm.
he was seeing the world, how he sees me.
Yeah.
Um, and then to just sit there and let him talk and let him share. Sometimes it's just random stories about, just some kid that was a little bugger, at school and would smoke behind. And I just sit there, whether it's real, whether it's non-real, it's just him being able to share.
Hmm.
And yeah, and maybe just for a moment, I think that there's this space again where he feels something like, oh, was I important to someone? Am I important to this person who's here with me, even if I don't recognize their face?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even with like the death doula work that you're doing, um, coming to end of life is to feel supported. And like, I, I think sometimes people might, um, yeah, just feel very alone and isolated in that experience. And so to be seen and to be supported and held and met where they're at, in that
Yeah.
particular journey, is so powerful too. It's just
Hmm.
providing that space. And I think that's what it is that you're doing. You're seeing them, you're listening, you're providing the space for them to be vulnerable how they want to be.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the biggest things that tore me apart during COVID was when I thought about people in hospitals and people in these long-term care homes who are all already so isolated.
Yeah.
Um, and just that much more isolated from people. Oh, and to die alone, it was just I
Yeah.
felt devastated for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah, I totally disagreed with that thought process about isolating people more and who are in these
Yeah.
types of places because they need that connection.
Oh, huge,
Even you
huge.
hear these stories about, those couples who have been together for so many years and the power of that bond. One person might pass away and then the next one follows pretty quickly afterwards because of that
Yeah.
connection being so strong. And that, once that's gone from the physical world, right? It I don't know, changes something within that person and then
Yeah.
they go soon too. I don't know.
Yeah. I often talk in my birth year medicine about fate and destiny. And, for some people that may not know, but it's sort of my feeling that we have these fates, we have these things that happen to us in our life as we go along.
Hmm.
And at a certain point, we learn these lessons and we get our gifts from those fates and we turn it into our destiny and our purpose. It guides us somewhere. Would you say, with having your mom get sick and just you having that experience, which other people have not had in their life, would you say that that fate would be part of your destiny?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has influenced the trajectory of my life, to be honest with you,
Mhm.
in lots of different ways. And, um, as I said, like when started to like, I wanted to document her and for her voice to be heard because she wasn't able to use it anymore. And
Mhm.
so seeing the importance, but what happened, the that kind of started that like the documentary photography piece that I've been doing. But then what happened is something within myself, and I'm like, this is this is healing. Like this is really a healing thing that's happened between my mom and I because it actually created this bridge
Mhm.
where I wasn't the caregiver. I was the daughter again, and she was my mother. And
Wow.
so it was a really beautiful thing. And I think I want to say it was healing for her or I don't know, but it was really healing for me. And I can only speak on for myself. And so then I was like, huh, I need to like, you talk about a somatic practice and, how our bodies. And so I needed a way to process a lot of the things that were happening. And I'm like, I need to start photographing myself. And so that led to
Wow.
me doing self portrait work. And really, it was processing all of the shit that I had been moving through and seeing and experiencing in my life, whether that was through my mom or just, all the other things that has happened to me.
Mhm.
Um, and so I felt that. So I started doing the self portrait work. And that was really this healing point. And so, um, which then led to, so I'm just kind of like going back into this because you talked about that point. And so it was like this domino effect that happened. So from
Mhm.
there, then I'm like, okay, like this is healing me in some ways. This is I'm being able to use my voice through photography and through writing and sharing those
Yeah.
pieces and to be able to be vulnerable and let go of some of those barriers that I had within myself. And then
Oh, that's huge. That's huge.
yeah, and it was
Wow.
and then it led to then me kind of coming back into the social work realm and seeing like art is such a powerful medium to process. And so then I like kept on doing the photography piece and then the multimedia work had expanded that way and my self-portrait work. But then I'm like, I need to like learn more about like the art and how it is healing. So then I went back to school and I did an expressive art therapy certification through Wheat. And then I'm like, I want to go deeper. Like I know photography is in particular. So then I was doing research on so then I took some courses and certifications on phototherapy and then therapeutic photography and then mindfulness photography. And I'm like, because if
Wow.
I experience that, I know that it can be powerful for other people and it's not as intrusive. It's not like when you sit there and
Yes.
you're doing talk therapy, you don't have the language. Sometimes
Mhm.
you don't know how to articulate something. And I'm like, photography, you do. And it's easy. Everyone takes photos, right? With their
Yeah.
camera on their phone or whatever at some point. Everyone, I'm sure, has taken a photograph. And there
Yeah.
was a meaning behind that. Why did they choose to take that particular photograph when they did? And whether that was just of their child playing hockey, or there's a beautiful sunset, or they're at a party and they want to document it, there is a reason. And
Mhm.
that is to preserve some of those memories. And but I think it's also to process what it is that they're experiencing. And
Yeah.
so then I started getting into teaching other people. And like I said, with Shale Home, I did that. And I'm doing more expressive art therapy type of work because I know, because I felt it. And I see other
Mhm.
people, like whether that's just me taking their photographs or when they are taking photographs for themselves to tell their own stories.
Wow. As you're
Yeah.
talking, this is so interesting. You're talking about this, and I can literally see this like white aura coming like off of your body.
Oh,
I'm
that's
just like,
awesome.
yeah, I'm like, okay, she's totally in her.
I love that.
Wow. It's so true. Like there was a program at the cancer center, and I mean, we had traditional psychology and people that did talk therapy, but then there was a huge program for like art therapy. And just to be able to see, you're right, the people that just didn't have words for it, but that they could create something through leather or an artwork or photography. Like there was so many different mediums,
Hmm.
and they were right in the cancer center, and then they also had a separate building for it. And I mean, Edmonton's lucky to have Wellsprings here as well, which
Oh, yeah.
also does provide many of those different mediums for people. And I just think it's fabulous because it's if it's a way for them to be able to express themselves. I always just think that it has that energetic and that frequency. And if you're just sitting and talking about your cancer and talking about your cancer and talking about your grief and talking about your sadness, it's like there may be a small portion of that that allows it to be sort of brought out. But when we can go into that place of that drop in and we're
Hmm.
fully getting to maybe some of those more unconscious parts of ourselves
That's
and
right.
expressing those, that's, I think, where the shift and the change and the transformation starts to happen.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Because they're channeling something within themselves and also that, but then there's like that somatic piece, like the
Mhm.
actual movement of like your arms and creating and your fingers and creating something. There's a somatic piece that helps
Mhm.
move some of that energy in a way
Yeah.
that is helpful. So I don't know, like it's just,
Wow.
I think when I see people do the, like when I'm able to observe and watch when they're going through I give them a prompt of some kind, and then they're really sitting in it and thinking, and then they're like I did this uh, workshop for individuals who have metastatic cancer, and through like my business piece. And we went out to this place and I was just watching them go around and looking at different things through these prompts. And then we'd come back
Mm.
and then they'd have an opportunity to share what it was that they photographed. Or even like I got them
Wow.
to choose a photograph in their camera roll and like how they spoke about it and like what it brought up. Like it wasn't
Mm.
just the object, it was something deeper. It was something meaningful. And then for them to be like, wow, I didn't even like, where did this come from? I don't even know. And it
Yeah.
has that ability to, I don't know what the right word is, but like it just is, it's a powerful, powerful thing.
I think it gives people a different perspective, especially when you have someone like you who holds a perspective and just knows the right prompts and the right way to get them to see things differently. And
Mm-hmm.
because you're holding that space for them, that it gives them, even for a short time, if it allows them to have a different perspective of something, the moment they have that, it's going to be there. That pathway is going to be there. And then next time they might look at this thing differently.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Or maybe it's a
Yeah.
tool that they use to help process something.
Mm.
Because sometimes
Mm.
I'll even use it as like, creating emotional intelligence, like take a photograph of something that represents happiness or something that represents fear. And
Yeah.
then like, what does that mean? What does that look like? And then being
Mhm.
able to be like, oh, wow, like I took this photograph and because of whatever, or I drew this picture because it represents grief in some kind of way. And it reminded me of, and all of these things came up. And then for them to be able to work through it on their
Yeah.
own, yeah, it
Do you
blows my
think it
mind.
helps? Do you think it forces people to get a little bit more present because you ask something instead of just, we get into these moments where we're just like, oh, how are you? I'm fine, and we
Mm-hmm.
lose that connection with our own emotions. Like, actually, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety right now, or, to be able to really say that. And so by you presenting this thing and just maybe allowing curiosity, it gives them
Mm-hmm.
this opportunity to be present with themselves. And then from there, things just kind of grow out.
Absolutely, it does. It gets them to
Yeah.
focus on that particular prompt and what it means to them. And so, yeah, like when I take a look at the kind of the groups that I've done, there is this silence that occurs. It's not like they're chattering with one another and being like, what photograph, like, what are you going to take? They've really went inside and
Mm.
reflected on that. And then
Must be
when they have
beautiful
that,
to observe.
oh, it is, it
Mhm.
is. And then when they have the chance, we come back together and then they share and they'll show the photograph and then they'll share what came up for them. It's just, like I said, I just, my mind is kind of blown with what comes out. And I think for them as well, like they're like, oh, I did not know that that was there.
And I honestly think these types of things are sometimes the catalyst for the switch between them getting healthy and the dis-ease in their body taking them
Mm-hmm.
down another path.
Yeah,
Because to me, I always feel like dis-ease is trying to show us something that we aren't necessarily looking at in our life. And so
mm-hmm.
if it's by these little exercises that create some sort of meaning and spark something for them, where maybe they process the anger from something from their childhood or from a divorce, whatever that is, or they process the grief, the stuff that they've been holding in their body that has created this dis-ease. Um, by just doing this activity, they don't even realize that this moment was the trajectory to health
That's right.
versus death.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think anytime that people have a traumatic experience, so whether that's through like an accident or maybe a diagnosis of some kind of disease or whatever that is, whatever that looks like for them. What
Mhm.
happens, I feel like a lot of times, is that disassociation because we go into this survival mode. Our body is automatically like, okay, we need to survive. So what are the next steps that we need to do that? And so emotion kind of goes way over here,
And play and joy and
right?
curiosity, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're just trying, they're going, their body thinks that this is the best way to survive. And I think just because we're from that, animals, it's, I think just that fight or flight or the freeze or, the fawning, all that kind of stuff, we tend to do it because we're trying to keep our sense of safety. And so then
Mhm.
when our emotions and that disassociation occurs with them, then I think these kind of prompts where we're using photography, it's a really easy way of like reconnecting to some of those things that have been get thrown way over there. And it's
Yeah.
slowly kind of pulling them in, bringing them back to self and being like, wow, like I am feeling that way, or I did feel this at that point in time. And I haven't really dealt with that because I was just trying to, survive. But my
Mhm.
body has created all of these things. And so then I start reeling them back in, then we get more connected. And then our body, our nervous system tends to start regulating a little bit more, like better, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I love that the somatic work for me too is like I can just see these aha moments for people that they
Mm,
try to stuff or they try to push away that thing. And then I'm telling them, let's get curious about what that thing wants to show us. Could we bring it in just a little bit closer and a little bit closer? And pretty soon
mm,
we shift the perception. It's like, oh, and they're just looking at it from a whole different way. And for me, it's the observation, getting to observe how their
mm.
body is processing that versus
Wow.
their mind. So I love to hear that you're like a lot of the somatic stuff is also showing up in the way you're doing it with the mediums and
Yeah.
hmm,
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. And so it's just different ways of doing it. It's people, they're doing it on their own when we go into more of like the therapeutic photography pieces or the photographic storytelling versus when if I'm photographing them, then I think it's just they're being seen by somebody. I mean, they're being seen by me in both ways, but I feel like it's a bit different um,
yeah.
in how that occurs. But
I think both create empowerment,
oh,
but
for
you're right,
sure.
it's different. It's these tools to be able to like learn and carry them through
Hmm.
and and then yeah, this to be seen, to know that I'm worthy of this project.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah.
hmm,
Thank you for naming that.
yeah. Wow. What as we kind of close out, what are you kind of working on now? I noticed I shared one of your things you were doing like an art um thing and I think I was like so excited. I'm like, oh, I want to share this. I don't, I was like, I don't know if anyone in Regina will see this from my space, but I'm like, people like share this. People need to go. People need to experience this.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I am, and thanks for sharing it. Because now I can't
Yeah.
see who shares anything, so I appreciate it when people share
Oh,
things. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, I'm doing a few different workshops with Caring Hearts. So it's their organization does a lot of like grief and loss work. And so
Okay.
the one that I'm doing is for suicide loss right now, and it's a art therapy group. So I'm going to be incorporating a bunch of different modalities. So photography will be one of them. Maybe some collage work, some painting, some somatic pieces as well. And then I think I'm going to be doing a caregiver one for them coming up in the summertime. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and so I'm really excited about that. And then I'm doing a conference with Ovarian Cancer Canada. Um, and I'm going to be doing a therapeutic photography workshop for this conference. And so it'll be with a really large group. I've never done like a huge group like that before, but I'm really excited to see how it
Wow.
unfolds with
Yeah.
the individual groups and stuff that I'll be creating. And so,
Neat.
yeah, I'm very interested to see where that will go, but I'm very excited.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm going to share. I'll for sure share your. pages because I think it is a lot of your like your stories and stuff like that mostly documented on your Instagram, or do like YouTube? Because I remember like quite a few years ago you also went, I can't remember what country it was.
Vietnam.
Vietnam. Yeah, and you did a project there. Is your stuff like do you have a website that you document these things on, or is it
Yeah.
mostly
Well, I mean, I'm really terrible with updating a lot of things that I do. And a lot like my social media is focuses more about the photography, documentary, multimedia work that I do, not
Yeah.
necessarily. I created my own like it's called creative alchemy, where I was doing more like the combining of the photography or the art therapy, therapeutic photography, that kind of thing. But I haven't put a lot of energy into really building that up. So I think people would find me more on my website. Yeah, and I do have one, but
Okay.
again, I do have like some of the art therapy offerings on there, but the work is really based on the photography pieces that I've done. So with the Vietnam trip with Photographers Without Borders, that work is in there. Some other work that I've done in other ways, or the multimedia pieces. There, some of them are on there, but I'd say Instagram might be the best place for the most
Okay.
updated. But again, I need to improve on keeping up in that way. But
But I also think it's about trusting like when and what needs to be shared, because I think if we get into this space again of like robotic, because
true.
ultimately I think the experience is for the person that you're working with and you. And as much as I love like when you bring me into that, I'm like, oh my God, I love this. It's just like it's a piece of it, right? And
Hmm.
so I do like when I see that people, it's like kind of like you said with that guy, you just feel this like, oh, I need to photograph him. But sometimes when you're like, oh, I need to share this on social media,
Hmm.
that you trust that and that authenticity of that versus you just putting something up every day to
True.
get more followers or whatever
Yeah.
that is about.
I think it's just for me, anyways, it's just because I feel like every story is powerful and has purpose and intention. And I never want to, I never share from a place of like wanting to get likes, although I want people to like it because I want them, what we were talking about earlier is to connect and feel something from it, feel connected to another human in this
Mhm.
authentic way, even though they don't know one another, but to have that sense of empathy. And then when they go out, maybe they'll have empathy to somebody else in a different way that they didn't have before, you know? And so I always try to, that's my intention is just to post. It's just a matter of like, I just haven't found the time or put the energy into posting. But I feel like everything that I've done comes from that place and it needs to, because then it's inauthentic.
Yeah, yeah.
And people can smell that bullshit, and I don't want to embody that either.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for giving me your time this morning. And I know, like, people are going to love to hear this because I think that people for a while have, including myself, I went away from that creative spark for so long. And I was in that space of freeze for so long. And I even remember, just even with my kids, like glitter and things like that, I'd be like, and I want glitter around, and it's just like, it's learning. For me, I feel like I'm relearning to connect to that creative part of myself.
Mm.
And I love that you've taken something that was so personal to you and saw that it has worked for you so well that now you're using it as your medicine to share so that other people can get their creative spark back. Um, and just share in a different way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I just, as you were speaking, I was thinking back to, with my children, and that's, where I started taking photographs again. But now that you just said that, something within me is like, by having children, it ignited this creativity with me, but not with just photography, but like creating forts out of our couches and making
Mm.
paints and crafts or doing baking, making a cake or cookies with my kids. That was the actual point where it reignited my creativity again. That's what it was.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm like, yeah, like it was just doing those everyday things with my children to have fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That when we're in those high stress environments and our nervous system is, like you said, looking for safety,
Hmm.
it can't go to that space. But children, like when you see them in that, especially when they are safe and you see them expressing themselves and, doing all those things, it is such a beautiful reminder.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah, it is.
Mm.
It's a gift.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm gonna